prepared to have the late nights that aren't going to have results. Like, you had late nights that were as far back as April. That like, I'm only going to see the results of it like now when we launch Getven. So you need to be willing to really do the work when you aren't going to see any results. It's literally just about being patient. Like, you have to just eventually to come to you. And even now, like, I'm going through a little bit of a lull because I haven't had a casting in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. But they're still fine. I still have another gig coming up next week, and things will pick up. It's just about being patient. Like, things just don't happen overnight, man. You have to keep working on your craft. You have to keep working. One thing I always said to me is that it's fine to just deviate from the path everyone else is taking. You all merge eventually at one point, you know? Like, when we're all 30, we're all going to have our own houses, and we may have all gotten there in different ways. But the point is, you have your family, you have your houses, and you've gotten there in your own path. Like, there's no need to follow the crowd, you know? You can actually just go your own way.
Sibs, it is so good to have you on the podcast. I mean, Flip, we were chatting last night, and I was just thinking straight away within about 10 seconds of the call that we were on, I knew that it was going to be a good one. Just the sort of content we're going to discuss in this call. Like, you are an insanely interesting person, multifaceted. You've got so many things going on, which we're going to try to touch on all of them throughout. But it's super good to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Mindshift. First of all, how are you doing? And you know, what's happening where you are right now?
Thanks for having me, James. Really appreciate being able to come on. Things have been good, man. I've been keeping busy. Lockdown's been a weird one for me because I think for a lot of people, like, it's sort of been a regression, but for me, it's sort of like felt like a lot of progression. I was able to focus on a lot of my own personal passions and my business, and I actually left my articles during the lockdown. So it was a really weird period, but it's been really good, and I think I'm really excited for now, this sort of post-lockdown period.
And very fruitful. Hey, like, I mean, obviously you in now of your Getven launch week, and you know the podcast is going. You've got some awesome guests lined up. We're going to touch on each one of those, but just before we dive into the nitty gritties, just give like a minute or two and just tell the audience a bit about yourself. Who is Sibs Qetu-Yates? You know, from your own perspective.
Okay, cool. We'll also add the middle name there. So we Yates. So I appreciate that you guys have made the effort to call me Sibs.
Of course, because I still see a lot of people calling you Gift on social media, and I don't know. So
it's a weird one because like the social media one is kind of like it's there, so you're like consciously choosing to not call me that. But
and
like
more time.
Exactly. Whereas like in conversation, I can completely understand it, and I don't mind either or. But it's more just kind of like if you really are sort of going out of your way to not do it, then it's kind of like
exactly.
But a little bit about myself. So basically, so I'm from Cape Town. I went to Rondebosch Boys for like 12 years, and then went through to UCT. Well, actually no. After school, I went to Switzerland on a gap year. Well, it was more of a gap on. I worked as a junior trader trainee at a commodities trading house in Zug for a year, and then I came back. Studied politics at UCT, politics and philosophy, and then during my time at UCT, I was elected onto the Student Representative Council under the DASO banner, which is the DA student organization. I was also elected chairperson of that branch. After which, it was a really weird one. In the middle of last year, I was out one night in town for a mate of mine's birthday, and it always been in the back of my mind that I want to be a lawyer and I want to study law. And we got talking to this one guy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a lawyer," and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And he's like, "Yeah, I want you to come work for me." Like after obviously we had been talking for a while, and we were thinking, "Okay, cool, this is just a drunken chat or whatever." So I said to him, I was like, "I didn't have an LLB." Like he's like, "No, don't worry, we'll sort that out." So then the next day I sent him a message. I'm like, "Bro, were you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, 100%. Send me your CV and tell me a bit about yourself." Basically, what I had in mind was that you would study through UNISA and you would work for us simultaneously. So then sent him the CV. He then said, cool, come for an interview on this day. We like the look of you. Went in for my interview. Literally half an hour after my interview, he was like, right, we'll pay for your studies. We'll pay your salary and you can come work for us and do your extended articles program. So then,
that's unreal.
It was unreal. So it was an obvious choice for me at the time, because I didn't really, I wanted to work. I didn't want to, I didn't like being a full-time student. I've never liked full-time student.
So that was after your gap year, when you had come back, when you were deciding to go uni or go
this
work
is
or whatever.
This is after UCT.
After UCT again.
Okay.
Yeah. So then what happened was, I started my extended articles program now in January, and then obviously COVID hit, and things got a little bit tight money-wise at the firm, so they let quite a number of us go. And obviously, I would have been the most expensive sort of candidate's attorney with no LLB, so it made logical sense to sort of let go of me.
Okay.
Which was actually the biggest blessing in disguise, because it actually meant now I was sort of in the deep end, and it's like now swim. And I wanted to, and I could use the opportunity to really like focus on my interests and focus on my business, and I think I'm happier for it, to be honest. So lockdown's been a really weird one for me, because for a lot of people, losing your job, especially when it's such a good sort of like position to be in, it can be quite life altering. Whereas for me, like I think it was very positive, and it really pushed me in a positive direction. So that's a synopsis on me. And obviously, and then obviously I run a startup called Getven with 4 other co-founders, which is an online venue booking app. So I can tell a little bit more of the story. I'm sure we'll get into it a bit later.
We'll
dive into that.
But first, before we dive into the detail, give Getven a shameless plug. Where can people find you? Like what's happening? What's the timeline? Where can people find you, and what are you guys all about?
So my developers will hate me if I give a date. It should be in the next couple days or two. We're just sorting out a few bugs, but you can find it on getven.com. Getven.co.za will also reroute you to getven.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and basically what we are an online venue booking platform for meetings, events, and shoot locations. So if you're looking for a space to either host a 21st, 50th, a wedding, whatever it may be, you can do it through our platform. So we call ourselves like the Airbnb of the event spaces.
Yes.
What is cool is that we're the first one that you can book and pay through the platform. There's a lot of ones that are like venue catalogs in South Africa, but we're the first of its kind. Which is really exciting, and it's an idea that I had for when I turned 21. So that was in 2017. I turned 21. No? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. 2017. And since then, it was in the back of my mind, and only June last year did I decide to execute. But yeah, I mean, that's a little bit about me.
And that's it's so interesting. So, I mean, 3 years in the making, basically. And it just makes me think, I mean, what was sort of the process? I mean, because obviously it took you 2 years to execute from ideation. Well, the initial idea. So maybe just could you dig in a bit and lead us through the thought process? Did certain things have to happen? And I know also that obviously you were involved in Digs Connect. Was that sort of like a precursor, and it sort of sparked the fire, or
Yes. So I think the biggest thing, and I think I obviously didn't realize it at the time, but I didn't really have the tools or the understanding of how to execute or how to move past ideation. I had this idea, but I didn't know what full stack devs means. I didn't know I didn't know how to build a venture and launch it. So
way to start, basically.
Yeah, that was the most difficult part. Who to approach, like who has understanding of how to build a platform like this. So that was the toughest thing, and it was just the weirdest thing. It's just like because of my involvement in SRC and DASO, Digs Connect actually approached the SRC to help them sort of gain their presence increase their presence on campus. And I was the SRC corporate relations chair, and obviously working with them quite a bit. And I actually fell in love with the idea whilst I was helping them. And then sort of as it went, I ended up working for them as the head of sales.
Yes.
And I worked for them for about 6 months. Then I was like, no, you know what? This is time for me to execute on my plan.
Nice.
Yeah. So then that's actually, because then I understood exactly how to do it. I knew exactly what was needed, what departments were needed, what sort of skill sets were needed from your co-founders, how many co-founders to have, all those sort of things.
Yes.
And then I was ready to just sort of execute. And that's when I started in June last year. And it was weird, man. I built the first version of my website myself. So I literally spent I spent 3 months learning.
Amazing.
If you ask my mom, I literally sat in the corner of our kitchen every day for like 12 hours, just banging it out, trying to learn WordPress and whatnot. So then I ended up building the first version, and I had 2 other co-founders at the time. We weren't too keen on. They were really keen on the idea, but they weren't. They didn't put their feet on the ground. It was just all. They were just there for sort of moral support. And I always needed.
With these co-founders, was this Connor and your CEO? I forget her name. Petra. Were they the originals? The original co-founders? Okay.
There were 2 other the originals. So then what happened was, it sort of just had a conversation. It was like, look, guys, I need more from you. And they said, look, we can't provide more. We have our own businesses. We have X, Y, and Z, which was fine. So then I went to my own, and then I'm like, wow, I need to find a co-founder now. I need to find co-founders, because to execute something like this can cost R1 million. So if you were to check the billable hours of what our devs have put into this website, it would cost you a bar. So it's like, who has a bar to start an idea that, one, you don't know whether it's proven in market, so it's a really big risk to take. So what happened was, funny enough, I found myself on LinkedIn, and as I was going through LinkedIn, I saw Connor Kirsten had been interacting with my stuff a lot. And I was like, you know what? I've heard of this guy. He seems quite business orientated. Let me just send him a message, see if he wants to grab a coffee and if he might be interested in my idea. So then,
and did you guys know each other? Because I feel like you guys were mates before, or not? Am I mistaken?
No. We had met once at a Digs formal.
Unreal. Okay.
And it was purely LinkedIn almost. And then
LinkedIn doing the goods again. Eh?
Yeah. Dude, I swear by that platform, honestly. So then I sent Connor a message, and then he's like, cool, I'd love to grab a coffee. I'm very interested. So we sat down for coffee, and he says, dude, I think my dev would be interested in this. Let me go back to him and speak to him and see if he's interested. The dev's like, cool, I'm interested. Tell him to come over on Saturday. I think we met on the Thursday. Saturday, I went over to his house. He looks at what I built. He listens to me probably for max 2 minutes, and he says, okay, cool, I reckon we can do this with this website. We can probably build it in Angular, use Express as a middleware, Node as a backend. And he started around all these terms, and I'm like, whoa, what's happened?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm in. I'm like, oh, hectic. Okay, cool. So then now I've got a business dev guy. And then what happened was they had another dev guy who helped them with their crypto exchange company, Goose. And then Goose flew down to Cape Town to help them with that. I then pitched the idea to Goose, and Goose was like, I love it. And then he was like, can I get involved? So now we have 2 devs, and then it's me and then Connor. And then you fast forward, so now we fast forward about a month, and one of the devs' fiance is an MBA candidate. And she was the head of marketing at a coffee company. I won't name the coffee company.
Okay. Sure.
But she was the head of marketing there, and someone had suggested, why don't you ask her to come on board? Now, usually, I would think co-founding teams of more than 3 people but it's a bit dangerous to have that many people. Investors don't typically like that.
Why is that though?
It's really hard to tell. I think it's more about where will the idea go? There's too many conflicting sort of routes of ways.
The focus isn't narrow enough, or yeah.
Exactly, and that's what investors love, man. Like, one of the things I've learned is, like, one of the things that investors would struggle with me is that I've got all these little other things going on. You know?
Yeah, they question your commitment. And be like, where are you half the time? You know.
Exactly. They need that linear sort of narrow-minded, narrow approach to things, and I think that's where the co-founder thing comes from.
Yes.
So basically, they had a conversation with Petra, and she said, I'd love to join. And there was. Then we had 5 of us. And I've always had the mentality that I think I'm very aware of my limitations. And if I want to get to B, and I know that I can't, if I want to get to C and I know I can only get us to B, but someone else can get us to C, I'd much rather get to C with someone else at the helm. And that's why.
And if that means sacrificing financial gain and equity or whatever,
absolutely,
you're still getting there to see anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Sibs,
I'd much rather.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to butt in quickly. I mean, how do you structure, the equity, or how do you separate that? Like, is
as
that
much
like
as you can share?
So
yeah,
it's a very tough conversation because it's like
I'm familiar with the conversation as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
because for a lot of people, it's either like there's a financial aspect of it, and then there's a sweat equity aspect of it, and devs by the nature of their job, they demand a lot. Like, I mean, their salaries are much higher than what's, like, for instance, my salary would be in any other startup, So it's just a case of just understanding your co-founders and understanding each other. And I think it was a very easy conversation to have, to be honest, with us. Like, it was, none of us were really inherently, like, very selfish about our approach to everything. And we really were just sort of in it together, which was really nice. There were no tough conversations around equity and time and stuff like that, which I've been really blessed with, to be honest. I think it's very easy to have tough conversations around it. But also, I think for me, I was willing to give up a lot for the greater good, because I don't think I would be able to execute this otherwise.
I mean, it's also like looking at, if I give up, say, 20% equity versus pay R1 million for a dev. Like, did you have to, like, think through that and be like, what's the opportunity cost? Or, that's also a tough question.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things you cannot underrate enough is having dev co-founders. I know what it's like to not have dev co-founders. When I originally built the first website, and it is hell. It is absolute hell. Because you don't have the understanding of the tech. So you can't really change things that need to be changed. You can't iterate your product accordingly, and
I mean, the question, also then is like, do you regret not studying like ComSci, going into that? Because, it could potentially help with, kind of startups, or do you think it's easier as saying, we can always get a developer to come in, you don't need to actually have those skills?
So this is funny you bring this up. So for me personally, I don't, but it is something I strongly advocate that if you are someone who can sit at a desk, I would study that. One, the salary pool is unbelievable, but your value is incredible. You will never be short of a job.
If you're gonna study something, study that. Basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
For me,
it is the future.
Yeah, for me, I'm too much of a busybody. I need to be doing things all the time. I can't sit behind the desk and just code. The only reason I could do it was the weirdest thing, because I don't think I've ever focused that much on one thing in my whole life. But I think it's because I was so desperate to get off the ground.
Okay, so Sibs, you say that point. Now I'm just thinking, take us back to that moment when something sparked, like if you can sort of go a bit meta and be like, and sort of take yourself back there. What was it? Just like in your mind, you just had like utter conviction that this was going to work and this could actually work, or like, and then which caused you to literally grind for like a month or something trying to build this website? I mean, what can you just lead through your maybe thought process at the beginning, like, because maybe this will inform people when to sort of know when something is worth chasing, or you know what I mean?
For me, I always, the weirdest thing about Getven, it was in the back of my head for such a long time, and it was something I just wanted to execute, and it was always something I sort of thought, okay, cool, this is my $1 million idea, and I always had these really big aspirations for myself. I didn't really just want to take the sort of normal approach, go to articles, get admitted to the high courts, become an associate, then become a director at a firm, and then that's my path. I wanted to do a bit greater things. Like my brothers always used to say these things, say something to me every time they used to drop me off at school. They used to say, I'd pick me up at school. So they say, first change the world today. And then when they picked me up, did you change the world? And that always sort of stuck with me. Because I wanted that. And I think that's also what drove me to politics as well, was I wanted to change the world.
Yes.
And then I think when I fell out of love with politics, I wanted to change the world in a different sort of way. And I knew that, hey, in the back of my head, I have this idea that I believe at least can change some people's world. I may not change the world in the sense of like being like doctors without borders, but it changes the world in some way, shape, or form. That's what sparked me and like really made me go for it, you know. And I think also like I think I'm young, so I say to myself, I don't really think there's gonna be a better time to execute this than now. I don't have a family. I can afford to fail. Yeah. So that was the biggest drive, and I also like. I'd like to bring my brother down, but my brother said to me when I was really young, he was doing his accounting articles, and I was like, why do you want to be an accountant? He says, I don't actually really want to be an accountant. I actually wanted to be a radio DJ. And for me, I was like, that always like it broke my heart a little bit. And I was like, why not pursuing your passion or what you love? And for me, I didn't really want that. I wanted to always make sure I pursue what I love. And I'm by no means glamorizing it. It's come at great cost for a lot of other things.
Of course.
But I hope it to be something that's going to be rewarding going forward. But I would say that's it. It was the fact that I was young. It was that I thought this idea that could change the world. And I think it was just the right time for me to execute. Just looked at my life. I said, there's no better time to go.
So do you think if you had still, or if you hadn't been let go, do you think it, Getven would be launching now, or would it have been much harder? I mean, because that's something I think about. You get into a job and it's you have this like safety net around you, and it can be so hard to be like, yeah, I'm going to be an entrepreneur one day, but like you can't really have a job and do both like well. And so
it would have launched. So the weird thing is that at the start of the year, my involvement in Getven was diminishing because I couldn't. I working articles. You guys will know what it's like, man.
You don't have time.
You get into the office at 8:00, you leave at 7:00. Stuff to go home, make food, all that jazz. So I never really envisioned me doing Getven full time. I think I just wanted to pursue this law thing, and I wanted to get admitted so badly. So I think I don't know what it would look like now, Jonty, to answer your question. I don't know, but it would have definitely launched like that. But my involvement would have been the question. Would I still have been a part of it? I actually doubt it. I think I would have. I also would have felt too guilty. Not being fully a part of it, and sort of having my foot slightly in the door. And
I mean, I guess the real question is, Sibs, like, would you have regretted not being a part of it?
Absolutely.
So there you go.
I think the biggest thing is for me is seeing my partners fly with it would have broken my heart, dude.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Sure, that would have been hard.
Look, like it just, as you were saying that, it just made me think of this quote from Elon Musk. I heard it this year sometime. He was saying, I think it was like an early interview before he started Tesla or something, but he was talking about trying to start a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. It's like, you know what I mean? And that's if the more you think about it, it weirdly makes so much sense, because you are literally like taking the biggest leap of your life. You don't know whether this thing is going to turn out, and you are staring into the abyss, as in this thing is going to be a long-term game. Like and I've been thinking so much recently, like lockdown. I went through a bit of a dip this year, and just because obviously it's been a tough year and makes you think about stuff. And it's just that, like, and also, I mean, Jonty and I were also talking about this, the fact that we both put a lot of pressure on ourselves in general. Yeah. And I was just thinking about the fact that, like, things take a long time to happen. And like, I think people need to sort of rephrase there and like get the idea of the overnight millionaire out of
Bro, this is
out of their head. You know what I mean? And like this is something this is a topic I really feel strongly about because it's affected me so much and it's actually poisoned my mind, in my own opinion. Like, absolutely. Because I've put so much pressure on myself to achieve things on a day-to-day basis. And when I don't achieve them, I get so bleak with myself and actually take 3 steps backwards.
Yeah.
And something like Getven, for you, just to bring it all the way back, is that you started this thing 3 years ago, more than 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're only getting to launch now after iterating and grinding and going through beta 1, getting co-founders, bootstrapping, like grinding. You know what I mean? That's 3 years. You're only starting out.
Yeah, like whilst I'm waitering, I'm literally throwing every cent I have into that.
Literally. With me, you waitering with me at the same restaurant. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, dude, it's like this. People expect to go from 0 to 100 real quick. Like the podcast, I don't know if you guys have encountered it. Like, I look at my podcast, right, and I'm like, cool. I remember the other day I was sitting there, I was like, this is really high quality visually. The audio is really good. I have celebrity guests. Why am I only getting like across all platforms 1,000 views? Like, surely I should be on like 30K views. Like, this is like a conversation I had in my head.
Exactly.
And I'm like, dude, that's not gonna happen. Like, you need to have content that people can regularly engage with.
Of course. And you have to build up validation. Like, you're just starting out in this game. You know what I mean?
Like, who are you to think that you deserve 30,000 followers the day after your first post? Like,
of course.
That's the problem with our generation now. Instant gratification, you know?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And look, that's something I struggled with as well with the podcast, is like, because then you lose motivation quick. You know what I mean? And also what I didn't bring up at the beginning of the podcast is that this is the first time Jonty and I are sitting down to do another episode in a while. Like, you know, and obviously we've gone through a lot of stuff this year and it's been a rough one. But, you know, to an extent, I think I can definitely say for myself that it's tough. Like, you lose a lot of motivation. Yeah. You see you see the results in the beginning trickling in, and you almost think like, what's the point?
You know what the thing is I had this with my acting. So it's like your break can come at any moment. You just sort of have to keep going and then just
keep showing up to the castings, you got to keep going.
That's it. And like, so for me,
perseverance,
yeah. So take it to the acting thing. So I started at the end of last year. I was like, you know what? I quite like being in front of a crowd. Like I think I'm a good orator. So I wouldn't mind
the gift of the gab.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind like acting or like doing MC work or whatever. So I reached out to a mate of mine, Sibs, who's like a celebrity in South Africa, and he offered to mentor me and got into acting classes and whatnot.
By the way, I loved him on your podcast. The guy is like, it's so good. I mean, within the first 3 minutes, he said the most controversial thing, and I was like, okay, I'm in for the next 40 minutes. Like, this guy, you know what I mean?
It's a skill. It's a skill. It's a skill.
Completely.
That is so intentioned. Like, he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows how to keep people engaged on it.
Attention. It's about drawing attention. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah, completely.
Your attention's not gonna be drawn by being vanilla, and it's something I'm gonna execute tomorrow in my intro, my podcast. It's not gonna be the same as before. Because I want to draw people's attention because I think the dialogues will be really good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the point is I kept going to castings and whatnot, and just nothing happened or whatever. Then eventually, my confidence was really down, man, and I was like, "Fuck, dude." Sorry, excuse my language. And then
don't worry at all. I love it. No, I love it, bro. I love it. I was
like, "Oh, this is really bummed." And my agent sent me casting, and they were like, "Are you to submit for this?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll submit." And then I couldn't really have the confidence to do my self-tape. And then she said they've extended it. Are you willing to submit now? And I was like, no, like I don't know. And then she was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna ask them if you can submit it a few days later. And eventually I grabbed the courage and I submitted. Then and behold, they're like, we love him. And I was like, okay, cool. What's happening now? And then they said, well, they want to shortlist you. Just please don't cut your hair. And then they asked me to send me a few more pictures. And then I think they went to my Instagram and they got a sense of who I was. And they're like, awesome, we love you. And my first gig was an Old Mutual gig. It paid bloody well, and it was like it was a mainstream advert. It was on TV.
Yes. And this was the ad that you've that came out earlier this year, right? I mean, a few months ago. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, came out in June, and like, I mean, sure, like and I've subsequently, it's been a knock-on effect. I've gotten more gigs as a result of that.
Of course. Of course.
So it's literally just about being patient. Like, you have to just, it's eventually to come to you. And even now, like, I'm going through a little bit of a lull because I haven't had a casting in like a week and a half, 2 weeks. But they're still fine. I still have another gig coming up next week, and things will pick up. It's just about being patient. Like, things just don't happen overnight, man. You have to keep working on your craft. You have to keep working. And the same with Getven. Like, things haven't happened overnight. Like, I'm gonna be patient. The fact that our website has taken almost 12 months to build from scratch, because we knocked down my version, by the way, and then we built a new
Didn't
one.
cut the mustard, eh?
No, really. He's always looked at it and they're like,
oh my god. Well, look, I mean, it's something you got to do just to like start proceedings off and like kick off. And I mean, I actually love this, and I want to dig in more because I think this is so valuable to not only myself, because I need to hear this stuff as well, from you guys, but I think it's also to people, to young professionals and people like us going out into the world. It's so refreshing to hear, and it's stuff you need to hear and just to reframe things in your mind. Two things. One, from my experience with Conceviche last year, is I had the exact same thing, like, patience, which we, a lot of us didn't have in the beginning. We were under the illusion it would be a sort of a year in the game, then we'd all go and do all our separate things, like go and do articles and whatever, and be all good. Like we'd cruise it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then reality hits, slaps you in the face, and actually you are staring into the abyss, like Elon says. And that was just a massive lesson, because it just showed me that like I know now that whenever I start my next venture, it's like give it time, give it a year, give it 2 years, like, and just keep on. Like you have to have speed every day, like do as much as you can every day, but have the goal set for 10 years time.
And also be prepared to have the late nights that aren't going to have results. Like, how you have a late night for an exam, and then you have your exams 2 days later, whatever, and then you ace it. And then, cool.
But it's not the same.
That late night was worth it. I've had late nights that were as far back as April. That like I'm only going to see the results of it like now when we launch Getven. So you need to be willing to really do the work when you aren't going to see any results.
Yeah. And I mean the other example, sorry, Jonty, the other example I was going to say quickly was that like, talking about podcasting is like, guys, like look at Joe Rogan, like that man. I love this example, and I've been getting really into Joe Rogan this year. Like that guy has been honing his craft for 10 years on the podcast when no one even knew about podcasting. Like he was doing it from his garage and stuff. Now he's on like episode 1,537 or something. And
you know 100 million by Spotify. Was it 200 or 100 or 200?
100 mil. 100 mil.
Dude, that's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Although I saw a headline today, sorry, like to ruin this vibe that we're going on. I saw they might cancel him. Anyway, I saw a headline. I don't know, but anyway.
Oh, hectic.
Anyway.
Yeah, I've been getting into my Joe Rogan. But sorry, Jonty, you were saying?
I was going, what road was I going? I was going to say, how many times, or were there times when you had a kind of a road you wanted to go down and you had to like change your mind or change direction with Getven? Because I think what can be hard is people can get stuck on an idea and they can find it hard to change, even when, because they like sunk cost fallacy. They don't realize, we got to just ditch that and change and move in a new direction.
So when Getven first started out, I wanted it to be a one-stop shop for everything. So I wanted you to be able to book a DJ, sound equipment, photographer, decor lady, catering, everything through one app. I wanted you to be able to just never leave your desk to make events. And then someone was like, dude, no, you can't do that. You're going to lose focus and it's too many moving parts. People are going to look at your app and they're not going to know what it is. They're going to be like, Getven, like, whereas when you start out as a venue platform, people will know that you're a venue first, and then you have these add-ons. That was the toughest one for me to give up, because that's how I envisioned Getven in my head when I had the idea. So I would say that was tough. Another route, I would say that's pretty much it. Oh, the other one would be the investment route, because we're going to bootstrap. So
Okay,
that was an interesting one, because investment allows you to scale quickly.
Yes.
So because the thing is, with our idea, it can be easily replicated. We haven't got an innovative technology or anything like that, so people can replicate it. So that was one decision we took, as we were like, no, we're going to bootstrap it because of X, Y, and Z. So that was also a route that I would say.
What I wanted to say is, like, so the success of your of Getven is basically going to be like the network effect, right? It's like once you've built a community, then it's going to do well. And then the other question, like I was wondering, is how do you then monetize it and start earning a revenue from it?
So I'm still toying with the monthly recurring revenue concept. But how our revenue model works is we're commission based. So it's 15% on every booking that happens to our platform. So it's free to list. So the revenue model is a really tough one to choose, because there's so many different options you can go. You can go the subscription model, but the subscription model means that you have a lack of suppliers. Because why would a venue want to sign up to something they're not necessarily going to get people on?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Get bookings on. So in terms of that, it meant that it wouldn't really favor the suppliers. But obviously we would have a monthly recurring revenue. So that's how we're monetizing at the moment, is just commission based. But there are plans to go on the like Airbnb plus sort of route.
Yeah, so you have your premium offering where then you can have a subscriber,
and you have
subscription, obviously.
Yeah, and you have
concierge. Well, and then you can pay to like punt certain venues more, maybe.
Yes, yeah. You have featured listings and things like that. So, for instance, there's one thing that is in the back of my mind, because this is my job. My job is the product.
Yes.
So I'm busy applying my mind to the idea of doing a concierge service. So what happened last year, we got approached by this big South African band they wanted to do a pool party. But at the time, we just didn't have the resources to actually put it off. So we ended up passing it on. But they wanted us to organize the venue, the DJ, the sound equipment, the liquor license, all of that sort of stuff. So that's what I want to eventually do, is that if someone approaches us like that, we're like, right, we have all the checks and balances in order to execute this. So that's another.
So the goal is the one-stop shop long term, right?
Long term, but it's a very long-term play though.
Yeah,
it is
of course.
I don't even think it's in our next iteration. I don't even think it's.
Sure, because
Wow.
My sister's planning her wedding for the end of the year. And I was just thinking, like, imagine, like, there's so much admin, you don't realize what goes into a wedding. Like, it's crazy. Imagine you could go one stop, get all of that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
so there's a lot of tough things with that, though. Is like with like it's something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But it's that events like weddings are so personal. So, like, being on a computer and booking your wedding venue you've lost that element of personal feel to it, where you've fallen in love with the space. And yes, we have this amazing offering that we actually offer virtual reality. So not only
I was about to say VR, baby.
So you not only do that, so we have it. So it is really cool in that sense. But it is tough for a wedding to just click away. I think couples want to be in the wine farm looking around and really.
But so like on a side note about the VR AR vibe, like, that was your last podcast. Well, AI. We talked about AI.
Well, AI, yeah.
So I mean, we actually need to do a separate episode on that. Good idea for content. But yeah, I mean, on that point, I was just thinking, like, that's even a longer term in my mind. I mean, that's when I think about it, that's even a longer term play than your one-stop shop thing in terms of like waiting until that tech gets better, like globally, and it becomes sort of massively adopted by people. Where when VR and AR becomes the norm, then if you guys have that infrastructure in already, then you're gonna pump.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
No, I completely agree with you. Look, the VR tech is there at the moment. I think also one of the coolest things that I'm happy that I only executed last year is I just don't think South Africans were ready to. South Africans are very against using online services. It's taken a really long time to get South Africans on board with online services, and the idea of
just.
Yeah,
it only takes you another
country.
It only takes you another country to. It only takes you to live in another country to realize that South Africa lags basically the rest of the first world like a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And my idea would never have worked 3 years ago, dude. South Africans would have never swiped on a credit card 20,000 rand. It just would never have happened. They would have never liked the idea of going onto a website and finding a venue for a 21st on a website. But things have moved in that direction. Take a Lot has literally opened up the online game for us.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the really awesome thing. And it's something I'm grateful that I didn't execute earlier because I think I would have failed.
And I mean, whether you meant that or not, that's such a good value add for the audience, because that's as part of your strategy. That's understanding context of the market and like understanding that, you know, you may have this brilliant product, this brilliant website, seamless, integrated with payments, but if no one in the country does online purchasing and no one's interested in that, then it falls flat on its face. So understanding context has actually, and obviously that's why then you had to wait the 3 years to execute, which is insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we can change lanes a bit, and I want to chat about your podcast, right?
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, the Sit Down with Sibs is Sibs's video podcast where he's basically immersed himself completely into South African culture seamlessly. He's got a huge, the names, it's actually stupid, the names you have lined up on the podcast. You've already had Siv and Gessie. You know, is he a comedian, or is he he's an actor, comedian?
Actor, comedian, everything.
Much like you, multifaceted. The relationship that you have with him, I wanted to ask as well on a slight tangent is like, did he have a big part to play in sort of your maybe acting chops, your career progressing? Or
I look up to Siv a lot. Siv, I would call Siv a role model of mine. There's a lot of things I like about his journey, but I think the thing that I'm most attracted to, I guess, for lack of a better word, is his drive. I have never met anyone so hungry in my whole life. Like,
you can see that coming through when he talks. Like,
it is absolutely captivating, and I wish if I can have half of it, I will be so happy. And I definitely think he's molded me in a lot of ways. He's definitely sort of given me the don't give an F sort of approach, or what other people think. And I think that's one thing that's been really good. But also just in terms of, you don't need to narrow yourself down. I think when I was younger, it was always so weird. Like we were always sort of told, like, you need to narrow yourself down. Like you need to choose one thing.
Specialize
and stick to it, you know, because no one wants a jack of all trades and master of none, you know, of nothing. And I think when I saw him and saw everything that he did, it made me realize I can also do it. You don't have to stick to one thing, right? So that friendship has honestly been so amazing, dude. And like, I can't praise the guy enough. He's always had time for me. He's never been too big for me. If I see him walking past with Sia, or he's some of his celebrity friends, he'll shout my name and he'll come over and we'll chat. So yeah, but it's important to also have role models like that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
I think like growing up doesn't mean you have to stop having role models and stop having people to look up to. I think if anything, it's a time to actually have all those people to look up to
instead of 100% agree.
Yeah, and sort of also adopt the humble approach, like that you don't know everything. So it's really good to continue to seek out advice and seek out mentorship. Like the amount of people I've spoken to about Getven is ridiculous. If you go to my LinkedIn messages, I message people on a regular basis asking to go.
Yeah.
I've met with people and work for VC firms. I've met with just normal event planners, and you have to just always be willing to just listen to other people's opinions and not actually think that you are 100% you know it all. I think that's also.
But then on the flip side, when you are in the driver's seat of a startup like yourself, and when you are going out, like, I was going to bring this back to you when you made the point about Siv being big on not caring about other people's opinions, which I can also say from a personal point has been a massive weak point in me and something I'm continued every day fighting with. When you get advice from someone, I would think that you need to have enough conviction of your idea to take their opinion and sort of contextualize it, apply it, and disregard it if you don't think it's actually right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So I mean, has that happened quite a bit when you like in your meetings where has someone said like something quite strong that you should maybe change completely, and then I don't know.
Someone's flat out told me this not going to work, which is cool because I said to them, watch,
give me 10 years.
Watch, like so.
I love that.
For me, it's only been like the last year, but like negativity drives me. So I don't know if you guys have ever had like, are you guys on YouTube?
What you mean, like?
Started a YouTube channel.
Well, are you like? So the dislike button, right?
Oh yeah.
The other day, I found myself fixating on this one dislike. I think I had like 30 likes.
Okay.
I had 30 likes and I had one dislike.
Oh, this is great.
And Brew, I fixated on that dislike all day. It drove me nuts. I was like, why would you do that? Like, what did I do wrong?
Yes.
And I don't think I've ever used the dislike button on YouTube, actually.
Never.
These people that do this.
I know.
I
agree.
But anyway, then after a while, I just sort of thought, I was like, you know what, screw that, man. I'm going to make content that's better so that doesn't happen. But it's always going to happen. But I used it to drive me and motivate me. So like, it's important to also like when people say negative things that you use it as a driving force. And I've always been of the opinion that no one who's doing more than you will criticize you. It's only people who are doing less than you who will criticize people who are doing more.
I mean, it's such an interesting point because I mean, I've been like on LinkedIn, I've seen a couple cool posts lately, and you go look and there's like 80,000 comments. I don't know if you see those like trending things, and there's always so much negativity as well.
So much.
It's like, I suppose you just got to realize like you're never going to be able to please everyone. Like no matter what you do, there's always going to be someone out there who disagrees or. So absolutely. I suppose, it's coming to that acceptance.
And it's also like not overvaluing or not undervaluing the positive comments. That's something I've done a lot with like posts when I've put myself out there, is that you read into all the negatives and you like stress and you like curl up in a corner and almost die, but you neglecting the fact that like people have like spread positivity. And like Sibs, I actually wanted to bring this up. This was a question because, if you scroll your social media on Instagram or wherever, there's 90% positivity that I saw, right? Like people heap praise on you. Yeah. And then that's so interesting that you make that point that the one dislike affects you so much. And I mean, that's how it goes.
And your previous point, literally, I've been trying to apply it to myself, and it's so much easier said than done. But like when like trying to just acknowledge that, okay, cool, there were 100 likes and one person hated it and said something nasty about you, like carry that 100 with way more weight.
100%.
But
it's like human nature, to like look at the negatives, I guess. Yeah,
exactly. I was listening to Derek Watt's podcast this morning with Nick Hammond, and in it he was saying that the human brain is literally designed to focus on the negative. Yes. So it's something you have to consciously always be aware of. Just be like, like there's like, and I always use that likes thing as a comparison, because I also have my Instagram open, because I'm also trying to raise my Instagram following, because there's a whole thing I'm doing. I need to actually explain this, because I think it'll be
okay. Explain. Go.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why I'm pushing my own personal brand. It's actually not because I want to be famous or I want to be rich from being an actor or from being a podcaster or an MC or whatnot. I want to use my brand to be able to leverage my businesses. So it'll be Getven today, but there will be other businesses that I would like to start.
Of course.
And
That's the framework.
Yeah, and obviously having a following allows so much ease in terms of marketing and exposure to those businesses. So where the podcast idea really came from, and in terms of how its like creative concept came about, was I was like, cool, I'm trying to leverage my brand with Getven. I'm trying to leverage my brand with Getven. Okay, how can I do that? Okay, I'm not just gonna do that by just sitting at a desk talking about myself. Who has lots of clout? Oh, celebrities. Okay, cool. So let's make it a celebrity component. So now we have a celebrity, but now how can I make it more Getven-y? Oh, let's have it in restaurants, and I get to meet the venue owners, and then they get to sign up to my venues, to my website, because that's literally how it's happening. So every single one has signed up. I signed up Hudson's there for eight venues across country.
Yeah, I mean, look, I love it, bro. I love it.
So that was like a very sort of conscious effort. Now I can't remember where I've deviated from. So you might have to help me get back. But
no, we can carry. Like, listen, this is a rabbit hole I want to continue down, because this is what I believe is, and I've also been, to an extent, like I haven't started something like you have to the extent, but I mean I've also sort of been laying the groundwork for myself. And because what you don't, I mean, by building the personal brand, what you already know, and what I think a lot of people need to understand is that when that opportunity comes by, you can leverage what you've built for yourself and apply, like take those eyes' attention to what you are doing, and therefore decrease the marketing spend on whatever you're doing, and you're connecting your business like on a very human level, because people already know you, therefore they trust your brand because they know you and they trust you.
Exactly.
And I mean, this is why I'm sitting here in front of you as well, and like Jonty's the same. I mean, we are doing this podcast because we're playing, and we've just been talking about long term and patience and whatever. Like we are playing the 10-year game here. Like, you know what I mean? Someone could come to me one day and be like, Luca, I just listened to your 10th episode with Jonty and Sibs, and I absolutely loved it. And like, are you interested in investing in this thing? And you know what I mean? Like opportunities, you manifest opportunity by doing this.
I'm a big believer, and I guess it was ties in probably with my religion, but like I'm a big believer that what you put out into the world is what you get back. And like, of course, for instance, you can't underestimate how many people are watching. Luca, the thing is about you is that whenever I speak to people and I ask people, who's the most active person you know on LinkedIn, everyone's answer is you.
Really?
Yeah, Luca.
Okay, wow, that's
And you know what, Rue, that is, it is. You have no idea how much weight that's going to carry going forward, because when people are thinking about people who are either business savvy, in the back of the mind, you are front of mind. Well, okay, if that makes sense.
In the back of I know what you mean.
You'll be the first person that they think of, And like, I literally had this conversation.
Thanks for bringing that to my attention. I mean, that's amazing.
And it's also important to know that sometimes, like, you're not going to get. I haven't ever told you that, and maybe I should have told you that because it actually probably would have spurred you on to continue doing it. But
I mean, straight away.
Be able to operate without getting the praise, because people are watching, people are listening.
Of course.
Exactly.
And I mean I've also, you know what, like this is so great. And I also, just to take a step back before I continue my point, I knew from that first 10 seconds on the phone call with you last night that this conversation was going to be so valuable. And like, I just want to say, I'm so glad we're having you on this podcast tonight, because you are bringing an immense amount of value to people. And like, I just wish we could squeeze more. And I don't know, like, I just want to squeeze every last minute out of here before we have to get off. But, you know, I was going to, sorry, to come back off that tangent. I've been reading a lot about Stoicism, right, this year.
Yes, yeah.
Stoicism is basically that like old philosophical belief where you, at a very fundamental, simple level, yes, you love what happens to you, but it's also multifaceted. So it's also you always maintain a middle ground. What I mean by that is that you never over celebrate the highs, and you never get too sad on the lows, and you never get too happy on the highs.
Yeah.
And now what you've just told me, I was like super stoked. Like, this is just what's going on in my mind, right? As you said that, but then in my mind, I was like, okay, wait, like, don't get too high on your horse, because like, you know what I mean? You like, that doesn't mean you've done anything. Just, you know, just because Sibs has told you that, like, that doesn't mean you now need to sit back and relax. Like,
absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's finding that middle ground between, and look, it's also with Getven, you can apply it with your, whatever you do with your acting. And you've said the same, like when you weren't getting those jobs or those castings or whatever through your acting career, you never got too low, because that's why you continued. And then now you've done the old neutral ad, you've broken out, sort of. You got your foot in the door. But that also means then you mustn't get too high on your horse.
Absolutely. But I was going to ask you something. Do you guys ever like, do you struggle with those, like, after you probably launched, how do you pronounce it, Conservice?
Yeah, Conservice, perfect.
Okay, so
perfect pronunciation.
Like, did you ever struggle with it after you launched and everyone was giving all that praise and all that, like, just there was so much hype around you and you were constantly stoked, and then when it died out, like, how did that feel like, bro? Like, because it's something I struggle with a lot. It's I'm always sort of, I wouldn't say I'm chasing it, but at the back of my mind, it's like something I'm chasing. It's a little bit of like positive affirmation from my peers, you know, and then reinforce.
I suppose it's like, you gotta like take the wins as they come, but you also gotta, it's like not getting too high on your horse as well. Hey? Yeah. Like having humility as well, and realizing like it's only the beginning, right? Like it is amazing that you guys like launched companies, and that should be celebrated, I think, because it is like something that's like super amazing. Like, to actually execute and start a company is like what most people won't do. But you know, like, that's also then realizing like this is only the beginning. Like, you know, it's only just starting. So I don't know what thoughts like you have, Luca, from your side.
Like you said it in one of your one of your LinkedIn posts recently, or a Facebook post when you were talking about Getven. You were basically saying like what we're talking about, like how amazing it is to be launching right now. And then the one sentence you said, but now I know the work starts. And like, this is the point of it. Like, and what happened with me at Conservice, bro, like when we launched the website, when we finally were, you know, when we were finally ready to sell and like got the website launching, we thought we had won. We were like celebrating and stuff. But that was something deep inside of me was like, wait a second, you haven't done anything. You know what I mean? Like, not yet. Like, you're not, you know, you haven't sold as much, or you haven't, you know what I mean? You haven't done anything yet.
But I think that's probably I'm the same. I'm like, I think it's our overly critical nature. Like, I'm my biggest critic, and I'm flipping hard on myself.
I think it's also good though, but then it's also acknowledging like the small victories as well, because otherwise, you're just too hard on yourself, and then, you know, that like you say, it's just focusing on the negatives.
Because you see, this is the thing with Stoicism, is what I was saying, to bring it all the way back, is you maintain that middle ground. You don't get too happy when things are good. You don't get too sad when things are bad. And that gives you the speed. And I'm not speaking as if I'm like good at this, or like I've perfected this. Like, I'm not. Because you know what I mean? Like, during this year, I had a really, like, I'll be brutally honest with, you know, everyone, with you guys and everyone listening, like, I was on a low. Like, I was on a serious low, and it was a few weeks until, like, I just didn't feel like doing anything some point, like some days, and it was just, work was hell, and I just wasn't, but that's the thing. Like when you're going through something like that, there's always something to be grateful about. There's always something to be, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah. You
know what I mean? And the opposite is like, say Getven, when you guys launch and you guys are, you signing Hudson's, you signing all these different venues. It's like, things may be looking good, but you can always do better. You haven't done anything.
Like I always sort of grapple with when will I be content with Getven, and I didn't really know, dude. And I think, is it $1 million turnover? I don't think so. Which is cool, but at the same time, it's kind of like, what am I also working towards? It's a question I'm grappling with, but it's lovely.
Sorry to butt in, but my mind wants to tell me that the goal, my gut tells me that the goal is to be happy with what you're doing and the process of getting to where you're getting. You know what I mean? And I also heard something earlier this year where, like, it's talking about also in your brain. Your brain has more of a dopamine rush in the lead up to something versus the actual event, right? So you're gonna have more of a dopamine rush in the lead up to $1 million turnover than when you actually get to $1 million turnover. So you like just on a neuroscience level, it's almost saying like you need to be like loving the fact that you're getting there.
Yeah.
What I mean? And that's the goal. I feel like that's the goal. I feel like that's sort of the goal that we all need to get to. You know what I mean?
The funniest thing is there's only one thing in my entire life that has matched the actual event, has matched the build up, or has matched the expectations that I had watching Manchester United play at Wembley.
Okay.
Genuinely, it was everything I expected. Like it was like to the T. Like I didn't expect anything more. I didn't expect anything less. It was amazing.
Unreal, hey? Yeah. And I mean,
sure.
I was thinking before the podcast as well. My one complaint about you as a Liverpool fan is that you support Man United. So no, I'm joking. I mean I'm sure you always get those anomalies where like where something is insane. Even something like last year. I don't know if you guys are into like Marvel or anything. But I'm like a Marvel nut. With the rest of my group back in Cape Town, we always went to go watch the movies on opening night.
I remember seeing this.
Yeah, like even that, like the build up. Yeah, the build up to the last Avengers movie, like last year, was better. Yeah. Like my lead up to that was better than the actual movie. Like I felt way more excited. You know what I mean? So I think it's just
enjoy the journey.
Yeah, enjoy the journey and manage your expectations. Like
because I think everyone's living in the future. They're always like, I'm gonna get like a really good job. I'm gonna build a lot of money and whatever. And you're living in the future, and then you're not enjoying like your current state and where you are. And that's like, I suppose happiness is like loving what you have.
I spoke to my roommate the other day about this, and I was kind of like, I'm excited to see where I am in a year's time, but I think in a year's time I'm gonna miss where I am now.
Exactly.
Just like this feeling of like the unknown is like pretty exciting, but it's quite scary. But it's so exciting. And I don't think I'm ever gonna have this again in my life, because I hope that if Getven does succeed, I'm gonna never really sort of have this period of just huge uncertainty. I'll have some level of understanding of how things will go,
Yeah, but I think that says a lot about you as a person as well, and like especially to take such a daring leap to start a business like this and to be an entrepreneur. It says a lot about the fact that like you have to sort of like fantasize and love being in the unknown and like just being in the trenches. You know what I mean? And like doing something, not knowing if it's gonna succeed, but doing it anyway. Because you have this crazy mad scientist vision that whatever you do is going to change the world, and like and not caring about what other people think of you, and like that, who the hell is this 24-year-old guy from Cape Town trying to start the next Airbnb or venue booking? Like, who are you? You know what I mean? It's like you might get a comment like that, but like, you know what I mean? Do it you do it anyway.
And one of the things I always constantly say to myself is they aren't putting food on my table. Those opinions are not putting food on my table.
Of course.
So there's no reason for them to carry anyways. There is no reason. And it's one of those things. It's easier said than done, but it's one of these things you have to constantly keep reinforcing yourself and consistently always reinforce.
Sibs, this kind of leads me to this question then. So when you got your idea for Getven, right? And then like what got you from this is a great idea to actually being like, I'm going to execute on this, like considering like, you know, these are the costs to like get it started. Like what made you go like past the point where you're like the risk is worth it? And like how did you get to that point?
Tough, man.
Or you just like extremely like risk seeking and you're like, this could completely fail, and like, or was there like a calculation or
you know what? I think I have operated. I mean, this is not good. I'm not saying this is a good thing at all. I've operated from not seeing the consequences of my actions. So I think in this respect, it's kind of like I didn't really think it would lead to just horrible like periods. I didn't when I was starting this journey. I didn't think about all the negative things. I didn't sit there doing a recon and be like pros and cons. You know, I've never been.
Go wrong, yeah.
I've never been. I've never been that kind of person. I sort of just jumped.
But I mean, maybe that's like a benefit, and why like you can be a successful entrepreneur. Because, you know, maybe, you know, we sit here, we're accountants and we like, you know, these are the risks, these are the costs, like weigh it up. And then
I come from a family of accountants. All three of my brothers are CAs. My mom was a teacher. My dad was an engineer.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine in terms of the way they see the world? Like they see the world very linear, black and white. For them to have a son who wants to leave his articles, because that's what I did want to do before I got retrenched. But to have a son who wants to leave all of that safety to go be an entrepreneur where he doesn't have his fixed income yet, for them it's the wildest concept in the world. Like my mom every day asks me like, how's law? Are you job hunting? They can't understand it, and it's fine. It's fine, but it's just
you know, is that like an old mindset? Like, do you think, you know, that actually scares too many people away from actually going out and starting their own thing or being an entrepreneur? Because they're too scared of, I mean, they're too scared of the failure or the risk.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I wish I took a linear path, and I wish I wasn't. I honestly, I think that safety would be so nice. Like, I don't dig it, really. I'm gonna really enjoy this process of being an entrepreneur, but like it would have been so sick to have just gone UCT, done my law articles, done my high courts, linear, live in Newlands, like that's comfortable. Like I think I would have dug to do that, but that was just not the way my brain was like.
Okay, so Sibs, this is very interesting that you're saying that, but now, and this is where I want to get like. It's not that you wired that way. It's just that it sounds like something your brain, because you're an analytical guy. Like you, I know you think straight. Like I mean, you did politics and like you have to have your wits about you. You know what I mean? You don't just go on a whim and do something, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not
but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is like that sounds like the reason you aren't doing law and you aren't chasing the like just the comfort of Newlands is there must have been something deeper. I mean, can you elaborate on this? Or like, is something resonating with you? Like, is there something deeper that's just like something in you is just saying, no, I can't do that. I can't do this. Even though you may have been let go and like you're almost forced into it, but like, what is there something deeper inside just saying, go and do this, take the leap?
Look, for me, I think I'm just not a follower. I think I've never been like that my whole life. Like, and I've always been in leadership positions, and I've always just sort of deviated down the path less taken. So I think it was always going to happen this way. Like I was never really going to ever, so there's nothing that really like resonates with me outside of just being that self-aware and understanding that like, I didn't think I would have ever gone.
You know what's so interesting about this as well, you know, Jonty, well, I mean, all three of us came from a very sort of upmarket schooling environment. Like Jonty and I went to Bishops and you went to Rondebosch. I mean, in the same bracket. I mean,
Yeah.
and no, listen, I'm not into that whole Bishops Rondebosch rivalry anymore. I'm not gonna do that whole thing. But completely on, the same. It's the same thing. With the same judgy people who are being, with all the pressures of high school, where people have certain expectations of you, and most people go the charted path. You know what I mean? Mm. So, and I'm trying to relate this to the audience, and I'm trying to say this in a way that has other people in mind, and it'll be interesting to get your opinion on this. Like when you were at school, and because I was thinking last night, when I was in school and I knew you and I first met you, I thought about you. My first opinion was like, this guy's really different, and like. You know what I mean? And like in a weird way, like he's different. He's just a different sort of guy. And when I was back then, I judged that. I judged being different because that's how we were molded. And that's if you weren't a strong enough character at Bishops or Rondebosch, you went to the crowd and you sort of made fun of people who are different, right? Yeah. And I don't know if any of this like makes sense to you or resonates with you, but now I've thought about it and like who I am now, that's turned around, and I respect you 100. I have so much admiration for you for what you're doing. Like between the podcast, the acting, starting Getven, doing Digs Connect, like while you were studying, and then like you also like started your articles and went that route, but then sort of started and I'm still studying and like whatever, and it's so funny how things play out. And when you realize that, like, if you someone who's in school listening to this, or if you someone at UCT or uni listening to this, and you feel like you don't fit in, people are making fun of you, you feel like you're a bit different. Yeah. Like hear it from me first, and I'm sure Sibs and Jonty will tell you, like, it's a good thing. Yeah. And like,
I think that don't follow the crowd.
I always like, there's always a question I always hear people asking is like, what would you say to your 18-year-old self? Like, I'm interested to hear what you two say.
Yeah.
But
you go first.
What I would say, I think I definitely think like, I would have said, what I said to myself is there's no pressure to go do the law, and like, I think the schools we went to, there's so much pressure to be an accountant, to be a lawyer, to go study BSci or BCom or whatnot, and it's completely fine for you to follow those paths.
Of course.
But it's for the individuals who just don't really want to follow the path. They're just doing it because that is how all their peers are operating and stuff. It is very hard.
And their parents.
And really, there was a lot of pressure for me to do that, and I never really wanted to do that. I never wanted to go to varsity. I just didn't want to be an academic. I liked learning. I liked all of that stuff. But I liked learning in my own time. But I wanted to do shit. I didn't just want to go to UCT and then go do articles and live in units. I didn't want that. So I think one thing I would say to me is that it's fine to just deviate from the path. Let's take that's everyone else is taking.
Yes.
And the thing is, like, it all comes back. You all merge eventually at one point, when we're all 30, we're all gonna have our own houses, and we may have all gotten there in different ways. But the point is, you have your family, you have your houses, and you've gotten there in your own path. Like, there's no need to follow the crowd. You can actually just go your own way. And I think that's one thing I would say to myself is just do what you want to do. Don't listen to anyone else.
I love it. And don't compare yourself to other people either.
I love it, bro.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah, because I think we live in a society where we're constantly comparing ourselves to others, and it's so easy to look at others and be like, I'm not, meeting that standard, and that that can have a big, weight on people and pressure.
That happened to me. That was tough because I would see all my mates like Luca and everyone else, like they were all graduating, and I was still in varsity, and I had all these like entrepreneurial dreams and all these things. And I just felt like my life was stagnant, and everyone else is like moving on, and I'm like, why am I not there? So it's you have to one, appreciate that you're operating at your own pace. It's like it's just like people always tell you this, but it's so difficult to like actually reinforce your brain. But like, it's something you have to learn. It's just operate on your own pace. So I would also say that to my younger self as well.
I found it's honestly just about being in your head like not in a good way, being in your head every single day, telling yourself these things, don't look at this. And if that means not scrolling Instagram and like whatever, like do what it takes, do whatever it takes just to not compare. And like, it comes back to the whole thing about patience and just like, you know what I mean? Things take time and just, there's such a good quote from The Rock. He says, it says, we all on our own levels fighting our own devils. And like, it's so true. Everyone's on their own thing, doing their own thing. And at the end of the day, when you're 80 years old, who cares if whatever you did, as long as you had fun while you were doing it, as long as you were doing what you wanted to do. And I think that's something I would also tell Sibs, to answer your question. That's something I would tell my 18-year-old self, like, actually do what you wanted to do. Like, there's no problem in skipping out the first year of uni to go on a gap year or go and just go and taste things, like do something different, just look at what you like, gravitate towards what you're doing. Like look at what you gravitate to. Look inside yourself. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Like if you're watching soccer highlights or something every single day uncontrollably, and like you just can't put down the soccer ball, like you should probably go and look into start doing something in soccer, whether that's like starting a soccer podcast, which my brother's done, and I'm super proud of him. Like he's chatting football, like on his own podcast and stuff. PGB football, by the way, like just a plug for him. But like, you know what I mean? Or if that's like just playing soccer and trying to get in professional, trying your best, and like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I just think it's important to taste things, especially in the world we live in now. Like it's not a world we live in where, we should all just have our own lane, specialized. Like I think there's something romantic about being a jack of all trades and just having some sort of specialization in a lot of different fields. Like in ancient Greece, like back in the day, like when you grew up, you were a kid, you went to school, then you started your own business, then you were a politician, then you became a philosopher or something. You know what I mean? Like your whole life, you did like 4, 5, or 6 different occupations back in the ancient times or something, and I think there's something romantic about that, and applying that to a today sort of vibe.
But look, I think things are changing. I don't think as many kids are going to follow that very linear path. And I think like just based on our conversations, sure, like we all follow different paths, but I think after the way we see it, it sounds like it's the same, which means generally when it comes to our kids, there won't be that pressure to conform and
completely
go irrespective of how your parents turned out.
It's something that stuck with me was actually like Warren Buffett said, success to him isn't money or like doing well in his career, but rather at the end of his life, how many people love him and how many people like he's loved. And I was like, like that's the thing, building quality relationships is more important than, and I think like a lot of people have this idea of like success and to have to be successful and all that. And it's like actually just changing your mindset and being like, well, that's not actually real success. And when you realize that, I think that can lead to a lot more happiness in your life.
Absolutely. And look, these are conversations. I'm so glad that you guys have this podcast, because I think what a lot of people our age is, they think we're operating in isolation.
Silos,
I meant isolation. So that
in isolation, okay.
They feel like they are the only ones who are struggling with like comparing themselves to other people.
Oh yeah, completely.
They feel like they don't really want to follow this linear path and stuff like that. And it's nice to know that there's people your age who are operating under the same. Like, I know a lot of Christians have like a life group, so I'm part of a life group, and there you discuss things like this, and then you sort of like understand like how what other circumstances other people are in. But outside of that, you don't like most,
especially through social media. Hey, like everything's distorted towards the more positives and like what's going well in your life generally. But listen, this is a conversation I want to have more often, and like challenging myself, and like, because listen, I don't have it all figured out, and I struggle with this stuff on a day-to-day basis. And I think this is why like Jonty and I started this podcast, is just tap a different sort of interest, and like also bring on interesting people like you, Sibs. And flip, I mean, I'm aware we limited on time now, but I mean, this has been the most insane episode. Like, I've loved this. You've provided an insane amount of value. And I just thought, Jonty, maybe it would be a good idea if you've got some notes on like any questions you wanted to ask but maybe didn't. We should do maybe like a quick fire round with Sibs of like questions. You can do like a quick few answers, just to like squeeze out that extra bit
just
of
to
value,
squeeze out the last bit of juice.
And then I can ask the final question to end it off.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a couple things like I wanted to touch on was like, you know, if you had like tips for people who want to start a business, you know, what kind of tips would you give them? I know you have those, you know, we spoke about earlier, the LinkedIn posts where you
that was one of the first things. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to write a book. So just on the process of like a venture, building a venture, but not from someone who comes from a finance perspective, because I've read a lot of these books now. I've read these VC books that tell you a lot of these things, and I want to help other entrepreneurs who are like-minded like me at a very young age.
Yeah.
So on my LinkedIn, I try and as much as I can, I try and help out in the process. So I've created like LinkedIn posts where I tell you the right apps to use, and the apps that will save you a lot of effort and time, because it is a frustrating journey. That extra little lubricant will help make your life a lot easier, you know.
I've screenshotted a couple of your posts actually.
So
like we were saying before the call, is that, you know, this is stuff, and I appreciate this so much about you, is that this is stuff that's not talked about a lot. And I'm someone who's like insanely curious. I want to know, like, I've almost, like, to give an example about the podcasting world, like I've become obsessed to find out, like, you know, how do people do a podcast in a studio? What, like, you probably have a better idea of it now, Sib, so I should probably actually chat to you like another time. But like, you know, how do you hook up the mic? What's the best mic to have? How do you do this? Like, you know what I mean? Where do you run the audio through? Blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's what I did. Like with the podcast, I called Nick Hammond. And I said, Nick, like, I need you to explain, because I saw he did a podcast, and he spoke to you about on the phone for like 45 minutes telling me what to do. But I couldn't find online some.
Okay, wait, just back up. You just called Nick Hammond, like, do you know him personally or something?
I know personally. I'm sorry.
Okay.
See, connections. The importance of connections.
No, he went to my school, and therefore he was friends with my brother.
Okay.
Nothing special.
But although this is a good point, is that, you know, we actually lost this a while ago in the podcast. I wanted to ask you, and this is probably one of the quick fire questions, is with your podcast guests, how did you get Don Madge, the Kiffness, which you've announced as of yesterday, Mark Buckner, the Bachelor, Siv, you know what I mean? Maps Mapunyane, how do you, like, you know what I mean? To anyone trying to start their own podcast, what do you do?
If you don't ask, you don't receive.
I was gonna say, you just sometimes probably just gotta ask.
I love it.
Genuinely, like, I DM these guys. So you sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. Sometimes they'll respond, sometimes they won't. Then you find out who their agent is. Cool. Then you email the agent. They won't sometimes answer. But just keep at it. So I've got two really cool examples. Two. The Kiffness is one. I sent the Kiffness a DM.
Yeah.
And then I sent him like two ones afterwards, and they got no response, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever. I was just scrolling through Instagram, and I saw he was live. So I clicked on his live.
I love this.
I clicked on his live, and then I saw a request button, and I just clicked request. And he accepted. I was like, okay, cool. I was not expecting that. And the first thing I said is like, dude, I want you on my podcast. I've been trying to get you on my podcast for ages. He's like, yeah, I'll be keen to do it. Send me your details. I'm like, I've already sent them to you in your.
I love this. This is so valuable. Valuable.
And then straight away, he looked at my DMs, followed me, and then he was like, I'm in, and we chatted. And then tomorrow we're shooting. So that's the one example. Sure. Then the second one is actually the best example. This is like perseverance, dude. So I first sent Maps Papunyane Maps has 1.1 million Instagram followers. He's like quite a big African influencer celeb. And
isn't he a host on Mnet or something? He's like he was
host. So I sent him a DM, got no answer, right? Then I'm like, okay, cool. Who knows Maps? Okay, cool. Nick Hammond had him on his podcast. Let me call Nick Hammond. Nick, can you please put me in contact with Maps? Maps is like, you can't put him in direct contact with me, put him in direct contact with my agent. Then I get his agent's number. I then send her messages. Okay, if I can pull up, hold on. Sorry.
No, please, because this is so valuable. And listen, like while you're looking for what you're looking, just to jump in here, like this is work. This is like getting down like for 2 to 3 to 4 hours and like working. You know what I mean? Like DMing, sending DMs.
Yeah.
Literally sending 90 messages and getting 6 replies back.
So this is my messages with the manager, right? Okay. Notice
I'll have to blur this out as well.
These are all just me messaging her. She's giving me like one-liners.
Nothing.
I'm like, when is he available? I'm keen to shoot next week. When is he available? I'm keen to shoot next week. Nothing. Nothing. Okay? Fine. Nothing happens. I'm in Joburg. Okay, I'm signing up venues. Flipping, I see him in the corner. I'm supposed to have a meeting in half an hour. And I'm like, nowhere. He's here. He's right in front of me. There's no way I'm missing this opportunity. Called my meeting, rescheduled. And I bought a beer and I waited till he was done with his lunch meeting. And the second they paid their bill, I went over and I said, dude, I cannot miss this opportunity. I've been trying to get you on my podcast for the longest time. And then he literally said, we were talking about, are you Sibs? He's like, yeah. I was like, yo, we were talking about you yesterday. This is the woman you actually want to be speaking to, because she manages my schedule. I'm keen. So then I get her number. I walk out of there straight away. I'm on her messages, and then I send her all the info and stuff like that. A day later, they're like, cool, he's in. We'll just need to find a date. And then now we found a date. So we're going to shoot the end of October.
Listen.
So just perseverance and shoot your shot.
That is the bit. Listen.
I cannot understate that enough. You need to be ready in pounces. Like if it's there, just do not let it slip. Like I would have been in the same situation I was in before if I had not waited that hour for him to finish his thing. I literally had 2 sips of my beer. All I wanted was.
And listen, you could have easily been like, oh, you know what? Like he's probably busy. I don't want to bother him. I've got a meeting to get to. Let me just go. It's fine. Like I'll try the agent again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that never say die attitude. And like this is so valuable for people, you know, whether you're trying to get a job, whether you're trying to do whatever. Like never, you know what I mean? Like when my brother was trying to get into UCT or like studies or something, like, and we were trying to get a reply, this is another example. Like he drove all the way to studies just to go and sit at the admissions office and like ask and like listen, what's happening with my application? Like, you know what I mean? You gotta just put in the effort that like no one else is willing to do. You know what I mean? And
and I said to my ex-girlfriend, she got rejected from UCT, but it was not because of her marks. Like I was shocked when she was rejected. But she had already been a year in studies, and I said, "There's no way. You have to email them. You have to. There's just no way. It doesn't make sense." She emailed them, and literally they got back to her and said, "Sorry, it was a mistake," and she was in.
Like, and what if she didn't email? What if she didn't email?
What if she was defeated, man? She didn't want to. She was like, and I was like, do it. You have to do it. And had she not done that, she wouldn't have done it. So like, people need to be persistent. You need to be persistent. Sorry, but yeah, that was a very long-winded answer.
Listen, that is amazing. That is amazing. Jonty, any other quick fire questions that you want to ask?
The one thing, you mentioned you were bootstrapping, but like, did you go through a process of like considering funding and like, if you can like summarize that quickly, like how you.
Okay. I did go through a process of looking funding. There's the different rounds in startups, right?
Yeah.
You have an angel round, then you have a seed round, and then you have the series A, B, C, D, and so on. So I did the friends and family round, obviously, just trying to just raise up my own capital, just to.
So again, it was friends and family, then angel.
Yeah, it's friends and family, then it's angel, then it's seed, and then series. See those that also I posted something on that as well. Like you try and understand the terminology, because for me, I remember I was so lost at Digs Connect.
Was this that super long little picture?
Yes.
I found that as well. Actually, like not from your post, but I saw it and I was like, that's,
Dude,
good on you sharing it.
It makes such a difference understanding the lingo.
Yeah.
But sorry. So that's what I did. But in terms of like other funding and stuff, we realized our margins are so high. We don't really need to take on investments. Everything's in the house. We've got 2 devs who are partners, and we've got the sales, and then we've got the marketing, we've got the CEO.
And your entry costs aren't too much, because you have the devs.
And not even just that. Even if we're paying salaries to the devs, it's easy to work remote. So we don't need to have an office. We do have an office in someone's house, but we don't need to have an office. The operating costs are very low. We don't have logistics and trucks and staff that is packing stuff. Like we don't have all of that. So it's much easier to do lean methodologies, startup methodologies, and avoid maybe incurring and losing equity and getting investment.
What do you mean by starting methodologities, if you don't mind?
Lean startup methodology. So it's just adopting like just low expenses. And
Okay. Cool.
Like I mean, it's like you own nothing.
Yes.
I'm sure you guys have heard that analogy of like Amazon is the biggest library in the world, but owns no books, and Airbnb biggest hotel. Hotel.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that, and I think in today's era, when constantly on my Google newsfeed, every single headline is, every single headline about tech, business, startups, whatever, be it from TechCrunch, whatever media, it's always so-and-so startup lands $13 million in Series D funding. And I'm like, and something thinks to me, is, that's cool. And like, I appreciate startup land and trying to raise capital and whatever. But it's almost like got to a phase, and like, correct me, like this is just my opinion, like you guys are welcome to disagree, but I feel like it's just got to a phase where like, and I even saw it come through in Conceviche, where like people are so stuck in this thing about business, about raising capital, rather than trying to build a business that scales organically, earning revenue, keeping costs low, and yes, it takes longer then, and you don't become a growth stock that lists on the stock exchange. But you don't have a profit, and it's all like sexy Uber talk, whatever. But I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about that? I mean,
you know what? Uber's the one thing that's I've never really understood it. Uber's never recorded a profit in the entire.
Yes, that's my point.
They're on like Series U, and they what's they call it, well, they're not cost curve, but they the name escapes me. But anyway, their dip is really huge. Yeah. Like they are recording huge losses, and they will never be. And I think it's to be like 20 years or something before they are green, or in the green. So like I don't understand that business model. I don't understand how
I don't get it
operating.
Well, they expect it in the future to turn profitable. That's the thing.
But then raises the question is, ethically, how are they going to really make a profit? They're just either going to end up just completely undercutting the market or raising their prices like exorbitantly, or they're going to overly saturate the amount of drivers, which they're already doing. And I have no idea how Uber's going to go through. And also this whole independent contractor thing doesn't make sense to me. Yes. The fact that every driver is not actually an employee of Uber, it's independent contractor. Yes.
There's all those legal cases and whatever going on.
Yeah, Uber is just a suspect one. But
I mean, look, it's just one example of many that we live in a world now where everyone's trying to hop on the tech train and is just raising capital like it's nobody's business. My opinion, by the way, and it doesn't look like a lot of businesses are being built. And that's something I really appreciate about you guys going organically and bootstrapping, and it'll take you longer, but you're going to be profitable and you're actually going to build a real business.
Yeah, look, we hope so. I mean, the biggest thing is just our scalability. We won't be able to scale very quickly. I mean, if someone comes into the market now, with a lot of money, they pump us quickly.
But it also doesn't stop you from raising capital later.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And I think my dream is to expand into Africa. So I'm not interested in Europe. I'm not interested in America. I'm not interested in Australia. I just want Africa. I think so many entrepreneurs.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Or Africa. We're the most untapped economies in the world.
Completely.
There's a reason why companies like MTN do so well. It's because they're in Africa. But anyway, so that's my vision.
That's great. No, I love that. I love that. One more final question.
Yeah.
And this is something I want to do with every single guest, being our first. A bit of a virtual round of applause for you. At least for me, first guest on the podcast.
Really?
First guest. So we haven't done a guest yet. It's the 10th episode. There's a lot of milestones being hit right now, and I just want to say quickly, Sibs, I hold a lot of admiration for what you're doing with your podcast, with Getven, with what you've done, your side hustles, your acting. I know you're also shooting for Men's Health cover.
I'm trying.
2025 or whatever. So I know that's also in the works. But yeah, basically, just before I ask this final question, I wanted to say I'm wishing you all the best with Getven. You have my support. I know it's going to do well, and I hope, wishing you all the best from this and with the podcast as well. But final question before we sign off here is, our podcast is called Mindshift, right? So what would you say to young professionals, students, entrepreneurs trying to break out into the market? What would you say to them, one sentence, that will shift their mind to a better place and will help them to achieve their goals?
Focus your energy on what you love.
I love that, man.
Love it.
Love
it.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Cheers, pleasure. That was awesome.
Hey everyone, before you go, I just wanted to jump in here and say, on behalf of Jonty and myself, thank you so much for watching that episode. We really, really appreciate it. If you enjoyed that episode of Mindshift, check out some of our others. They should be around here somewhere on the screen. Also, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like for the YouTube algorithm. Till the next Mindshift, bye for now.